Hello and welcome. I am Diane Okonski, your host for today's program. We are honored to have with us two members of Iceland's Foreign Service, Svanhildur Valsdóttir, Iceland's ambassador to the United States, and Benjamin E. Ford, Iceland's honorary consul in Maine, who will be facilitating the conversation. Before we get started, I want to thank the INLUS members and donors for their contributions that make our webinars, classes, scholarships, and grants possible. If you are not yet a member, please consider joining us, and you can find information at inlus.org. Just a reminder that today's program is being recorded and will be available on the INLUS website and YouTube channel. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions, so we encourage you to submit them using the Q&A feature on Zoom, and we will answer as many as possible during the course of the program. So welcome, Svanhildur and Ben. Thank you for taking time to talk with us. And now let me introduce Ben Ford, who will then introduce the ambassador. Benjamin Ford, Esquire, serves as honorary counsel for Iceland and Maine. He has worked as a trial lawyer in state and federal courts. In 2016, Ben set out to explore opportunities presented by Aimskip's relocation to Portland, Maine. That journey led to deep friendships and even deeper insights into the common issues that challenge all communities across the high North Atlantic. In 2021, Ben and his partners founded Archipelago, the first truly interdisciplinary firm where lawyers work shoulder to shoulder with scientists and policy experts. Ben grew up in San Francisco, California. He has a BA in International Economics from the University of New Hampshire and a JD from Vanderbilt University. So Ben, thank you for coming and welcome. And I'm just going to turn the program over to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's so great to be with you all this evening. I'm looking through the list of attendees and seeing some very familiar names. And hello to everybody out there and in the internet land. I am so pleased and honored to be sharing a conversation with you with my friend Svanhildur. But first, let me do a little bit of her bio here, and then we'll get into some questions for Svanhildur. So, Svanhildur Hólm Valsdóttir was appointed Iceland's ambassador to the United States in September of 2024. She's the 17th ambassador to the United States from Iceland. And she was most recently, before she became the ambassador, was the Director General of the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce. So she knows a thing or two about business and economics. She has an MBA from Reykjavik University, and far more importantly, she has a law degree from the University of Iceland. Something interesting I learned about Svanhildur in preparing for this evening, that she appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2005. So I'm sure there'll be some questions about that. But before we get into too much detail, please welcome Svanhildur. It's so great to have you with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. Happy to be with you.
and just so everybody knows, I have specific instructions from you to refer to you by your first name.
Yes,
Yes,
you
yes.
do. You
Okay.
do.
All right.
And
Well,
I hope, everyone in the audience knows why. It's because it's a tradition in Iceland. No one calls anyone by the last name. It's just not done. Doesn't matter if you're the ambassador or, teacher or the president of Iceland. It's always first name.
oh, that's really interesting. So the children don't call their teachers by their last names. They don't say
No,
Mr. Yeah.
maybe with her whole name if they're really angry at them, but I don't know.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it
I can
does,
relate to
doesn't it?
that. All right. Well, let's get into this. So, let's start with who you are. You've had a lot of really interesting jobs, leading up to this career, now as an ambassador and in the Foreign Service. Let's tick through a couple of these. Maybe let's start with one of the things that I find really interesting is your career in journalism. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it was that you were doing in journalism?
So when I was a kid, I thought that I would either be a vet or a lawyer. And, vets have to do, all kinds of things that I wasn't particularly excited about.
Okay.
So because I mainly wanted to, care for animals, and sometimes you have to put down animals as well.
Mm.
So that was off the table. So then I got left with being a lawyer, and I studied law, and I really really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But the summer before I started my studies, I got a summer job as a journalist, and I just fell in love with it. And it's like, I don't know, you're probably not supposed to describe it as a disease. We sometimes call it, getting the bacteria in Iceland,
Okay.
and you kind of get infected with it. It's just something that clicked, and I continued with my studies, but I worked alongside my studies as a journalist.
Mm.
So first, I started at a small newspaper in my hometown, Akureyri, in the north of Iceland. From there, I went to the local radio station, which was actually a part of the National Broadcasting Service, RÚV, in Iceland. Then to the headquarters in Reykjavik, where I worked on the radio side. Moved from the radio side to television after having spent 3 years, or probably 4 years, more or less, on the morning radio.
Mm.
And then uh, I I was a host at a show that's still running in Iceland. It's a news, like a daily news program, like a magazine show called Kastljós. And then I switched over to the private sector and started working for Channel 2. So didn't
Oh,
change
okay.
much. Similar show, but
Yeah.
for a private television station.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
and I
you
did that.
mentioned?
So,
Oh,
po-
sorry. I was just going to say you mentioned that something about journalism bit you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what was it? Like what was it that sort
Bit
of
me in a
captured your
good way,
imagination?
not like the Washingtonian mosquitoes. I
Yes,
just I
exactly.
told you before we started publicly, because we were actually having a conversation before we opened up for the audience. But I've been told that maybe people could hear what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
I just learned that too.
Yeah, that's exciting. So maybe people also know that I actually found my first mosquito bite of the year today, and that's a bite I do not cherish, I must say. But yeah, journalism bit me in a good way.
What was it that captured your imagination? What was it that made you feel like, oh, this is something I want to do for a long time?
Well, it's I've always been just really curious about most things, and interested in, everything around me, interested in, how society works. Also just, I've been interested in politics in different ways ever since I was a kid. I remember, probably the first elections I followed closely. I think I was 9 or something like that. It was
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
and remember debating with, or trying to debate with other kids about what was happening, and my friends weren't that interested, so I was a kind of a weird kid. Um, and it's also just, just think about it. It's just it's so great to kind of have the you actually, it's not like having a power, but you have the kind of the right to ask anyone about anything. So it also gives you access to information and to people. And if you like writing, as I do, or maybe sometimes even talking, then it's a great job to have, because you get to tell people about things. And the thing about journalism is that you're not supposed to tell people only things that they want to hear. You're supposed to tell them about uh, important things, and make them want to, learn more about them, or read, or listen, or watch, because that's sort of your purpose as a
Mm.
journalist.
Yeah.
That's to, attract people's attention to important things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I hate clickbaits.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, right. I mean, that's something that appears to be missing, or at least in decline
Yeah.
in the environment.
And it's sometimes, it's sometimes a challenge because sometimes important things aren't not the most exciting
Yeah,
things.
right,
But
right.
so you have to find a way to make them, exciting or interesting.
So your career then in journalism, and eventually what I would consider more sort of media work led to a career in public service. What was that transition like for you?
That really happened after the economic collapse in Iceland. We had three big banks fail, and the complications were vast for, just about everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of those complications were that if you were a journalist or if you were say, a host on a news program, you were kind of expected to beat certain people with a stick on live television every day.
Mm.
And yes, I don't know if you know the expression. You were supposed to beat them with um, probably what we call naglaspýta in Icelandic. It's like a stick with nails in it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
really, really bad stick.
Ugh.
And after a while, I got a little bit tired of that. So I thought, well, maybe I need to find something else to do. So I just quit my job without knowing what I was going to do, which was probably not the most sensible thing to do during a crisis. But um,
Yeah.
it, but it led to something good because I started working for a parliamentary group and the Parliament of Iceland, the Independence Party's parliamentary group, which I did for a few years, and that led to me becoming the advisor to the party's chairman, and then I moved over to the Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister's office, and then again the Ministry of Finance, and after having done that, all probably for about more than 10 years, I thought, well, I think I've paid my dues to the public
Yeah.
sector and to public service, and now I'm going to do
Done.
something else.
Done and dusted. And
Yes.
so you then moved from that back into the private sector.
Yeah.
Well, sort of. I mean, I guess Chamber of Commerce work would be kind of public and private, but
No, in Iceland, it's purely private.
purely private.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always
Okay.
has been.
And what were some of the things that kind of led you to do that? And what were some of the things that you liked about that job?
I think it was kind of the sort of the same thing that, drove me in journalism and drove me, towards public service. It's just that it's sort of you being interested in the bigger picture and also wanted
Mhm.
to change things. So after having worked for years in the Ministry of Finance and sort of dealt with some of the things that really annoyed the private sector, I just thought it would be maybe a great opportunity
Yeah.
to look at things from the other side
Yeah. Right.
and to try to influence them from that side. And I like working with the businesses. It's just um, I actually think it was a really fulfilling job because in
Mm.
Iceland, the Chamber of Commerce, it's both a think tank and kind of a lobbyist association,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can call it that.
Absolutely. So, but this is what I think is so interesting. So you start off, and now you're in a position where where you're now an ambassador and you're working for the foreign ministry, and you're here and you're in the United States and you're working with all of these people. But everybody sort of brings their histories into these jobs, and here you started off as a 9-year-old debating Cold War foreign policy with your friends who were bewildered. And your parents must have
And
been
not
thinking,
interested.
what is this child doing? But
Yeah.
that led to the journalism, which then led to government service, which then led to working in the private sector and seeing these issues from the point of view of the business. What is it about that experience that you think brought you or that you bring to your position now as the representative of the government of Iceland here in the United States?
Well, I think everything kind of, it's all parts of some bigger puzzle, for me at least. If I'm that puzzle, I'm made up of all those pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that, being a journalist, you're used to listen. I actually like listening more than I like talking myself, but it could come as a surprise. But um, and also you have the experience of telling stories and explaining things to people and and that's part of the things that I'm supposed to do here. I am supposed to sort of explain Iceland and Icelandic interest to both the government here, officials, and also just the public. It's a really diverse job
Yeah.
being
It
an
sounds
ambassador,
it's
and
yeah. Yeah, it really is.
I also when I got asked, when I got the request, or what should I call it? Because it's like a gift, you know. It's more a gift than a request to become an ambassador. But I hadn't really thought about that as like a next step in my career path. So I had to think about it, but I had a really, really short time to think about it. It was like, can you give me an answer by noon tomorrow?
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh
I
my
had to
gosh.
say no because I have quite a big family, and
Yeah.
I have 3.5 cats, and
Ah,
and all kinds of obligations that I had to have a few more hours than that to think about it. But and then I thought, what is it that I bring to the table, which I think is a really healthy question to ask yourself. And
that's really yeah. Yeah.
and I one of the things I thought was, so what am I doing right now, and what have I been doing in the past? And I have an insight into how the Icelandic government works and how politics in general work. I have this journalistic background. I have my law degree. In the meantime, I did an MBA as well, um, uh, in between things, and I thought, okay, so I'm a lobbyist, and I'm gonna be probably a lobbyist, but on a bigger scale. I'm gonna
Mhm.
lobby for my own country.
Yeah. Yeah. And your own people. Yeah.
Yeah, and for things I love and the country I love and a country I know pretty well. And I thought, well, if you're asked to serve, you can't say no, can
Hmm.
you?
Right. Right. So, along the lines of kind of what influences your work, Sarah posts a really, really captivating question here. She says, journalists, lawyers, and Icelanders tend to read a lot, which is true, and write a lot. Given that you are all of these, a lawyer, a journalist, and an Icelander, what are you reading these days, and what are your favorite books written in Icelandic?
Oh, as I say, uh, I would not like to choose between my children and not books either. But I
Ah,
can tell you, I'm actually reading a book there are two books I'm reading right now, and one of them is about Greenland and the people who disappeared. It's a book that was published last year, and it's a great book. And also here I have one that uh, a former ambassador to Iceland from the US just gave me last week, which is called Ireland in Iceland.
oh, wow. Huh.
So it's actually not written by an Icelander, but it's something like about the Ireland-Iceland connection, which is it's a quite a big connection, let's say. Every Icelander has quite a lot of Ireland in their DNA.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting.
Probably you do as well. Yes, I see it, from your complexion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I often get mistaken for an Icelandic a person when I'm on the flight. The flight attendants will work their way down the aisle, coffee, whatever, and they'll get to me and they'll ask me the question in Icelandic, and I always say,
And they ask you, "Má bjóða kaffi eða te?"
exactly. That sounds very familiar. Yeah. All right. Well, so let's transition now into sort of the diplomatic process, the process of being an ambassador. And when I was thinking about these questions, I was thinking, walk us through this process because Icelandic is a very healthy democracy. And it's the process of, democracy is the process of taking the will of the people and translating it into material actions on the ground. So walk us through the process of the will of the Icelandic people, the policies that come out of the foreign ministry, all the way down to the sort of missions that your office there executes there in Washington, D.C. How does that all work?
Well, this is a really big question, which I'm not sure that an hour would be, long enough to explain in
Okay.
details. It pretty much works, I think, as it does in every other democracy. It starts with, the voters, actually, and it ends in execution in government. And we are sort of the extension of the foreign ministry in Iceland. It sort of evolves for us. I think Icelandic foreign policy, it probably changes less than many other policies.
Mm.
There are usually the same things that matter to us. For instance, here, what matters to us is that we are an open economy. We are heavily dependent on international relations, international trade, and all kinds of partnerships. So for me in my job here, so the main focus is to maintain those relationships, preferably improve them, and do my best not to damage them.
Well, I think you're doing well on all of those scores so far.
Thank you. But as Diane mentioned in the beginning, I had decided before that. I usually, I'm not always thinking ahead, but I decided before, we started talking that I was going to ask you, how do you become an honorary consul for Iceland?
Oh, that's a great question. So, when Aimskip arrived, for people that don't know, Aimskip is the Icelandic steamship company, and they moved their headquarters from Norfolk, Virginia, to Portland, Maine. It cut, I think it was 2 or 3 days off the length of the voyage to the United States. And the state of Maine rolled out the red carpet for them, and businesses like the company that I was working for, which is a law firm, started looking for opportunities of, okay, well, the freight is coming in from Europe now. Let's go up, let's swim up that stream and see what's going on out there. And so I did that, and I started traveling a lot in the country, and I started visiting all the ports that Aimskip serviced all throughout Europe. And in that process, I grew a deep appreciation for the Icelandic people, the Icelandic culture, and also the economic opportunities that exist with the introduction of this now shipping line directly. It's literally almost across the street from my office. I see the ships go by just before they dock. And in 2019, we were set to have a visit from the then foreign minister, and they asked my good friend Dana Eidsness if she could suggest a person who could serve as the honorary consul in New England, in Maine. And she gave my name up. I don't know why, but she did. And that led to a wonderful relationship with Bergdis, and the whole staff there at the embassy. I had to go through background checks. I had to meet with a security detail from the State Department. And then I got my credentials, and they were going to have this big party with the foreign minister. And I guess you get a crown or something. Didn't you normally get a crown when you're, anyway? So yeah, so
Of course you do.
I didn't get my crown, but I got COVID instead, and which led to a massive crisis. And I'm seeing a couple of honorary consuls here on the attendees list, and we all know what a scramble it was to get people home.
Mhm.
And that was something that I was honored to be trusted with, and especially the children. There were a lot of babies that we got back to the country, and I kept a little pictures of all the babies, of course, because they were so cute. But that's my journey. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's I know I am so grateful for your work and all our honorary consuls work, because this is something, it's a volunteer job. You do not get paid.
Wait, what?
And but you get a crown, you get a crown.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Uh yeah, but so I'm not sure that everyone knows that, but this is something that you do of the goodness of your heart.
Yeah.
And it's greatly valued. And also I've had the honor of finding a few honorary consuls after I arrived here in DC. And the first time I sent some on the list, sort of the requirements for the job, I was like, he's never gonna say yes, because it's a quite a lot of duties and obligations that
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
since I have you here on the spot, so what made you take the job,
Um,
or the position rather, because you're not
I
going to get paid.
yeah. Yeah. I just liked doing it. I like to meet people. I like to talk to people. I like to learn about them. I like to ask questions like the questions I'm asking you. I like to also promote the relationship between the two countries. Actually, specifically promote the relationship between Iceland and my home state of Maine. I think that there's just enormous opportunities for both of our people to benefit from that relationship. And if it means doing a job for which I don't get paid, then I would do it 100 times over, because I think it's so important for both our people. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy to hear that, and also because it's an important job. For instance, we have elections coming up this spring,
We
once
do.
again, for
Yes.
for the councils in Iceland,
Yeah.
municipality elections. So that means probably some work for you.
Absolutely. I love doing that too. I have a little flag. We go down to the AIMSCIP office. We have a little polling area set up, tables, all that stuff, so people can come in and vote. Absolutely. But let's talk about let's get back to sort of the business relationships between United States and Iceland. David Posa gives us another good question here, which is promoting Iceland is such a privilege. Give us your best Iceland pitch from the perspective of what businesses or industries in Iceland do you think have the most relevance to life in the US today?
Um, what business in Iceland have the most relevance to life in US today? What
Yes.
businesses? So we actually have quite a lot of Icelandic businesses already operating in the US, selling products here. For instance, I went to Boston last week and met with a lot of Icelandic seafood companies, both from the fisheries and as well as from the tax side, because the tax side it's quite important to us. I'm sure many of you have heard about Marel, which is now JPT Marel, and also I'm always just happy to see Icelandic cod in Whole Foods. I know it's a small thing, but
The best. It's the
yeah,
best.
I just it's just one of the things I love. It's to go into Whole Foods and being able to just buy really good Icelandic cod and go home and make plokkfiskur.
Ah, yes.
Yes, which
Yes.
is
My
which is a
favorite.
yeah, it's a favorite dish for us as well. So
Mm.
yeah, that does. And here across the river in Virginia, we have Keresis operating. They have the sales offices here in Arlington. And it's one of the things that, because sometimes people, ask you, what do you think is going to be the next big thing from Iceland, or what's the biggest thing on the horizon? And then I sometimes think about Keresis, because
Mm.
if I would think 10 years back or something, and think that Keresis, which then was kind of experimenting with making, wound patches out of cod skin, which seemed like a kind of an outlandish idea. that they would actually make it big and become the first unicorn out of Iceland. I never in a million years I would not have expected that, but they're doing great here. And we are also really proud of Össur, who has been in helping people here in the US for quite a long time. They produce some of the world's best prosthetics, and it's just they're making people's life better.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope that is what Icelandic projects do. I always bring a little bit of Iceland with me here. It's I tell people that I always use Icelandic beauty products, for instance, made out of cod enzymes.
Ah, I love it. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah, there's also the couple of things that I think are really interesting in Icelandic, coming out of Icelandic universities. There's a lot of equine science that's happening, that's developed in a lot of horse related technology and science that's being developed in Iceland. There's a lot of work in seaweed and fish and aquaculture that's being done in Iceland that's affecting that can impact the Maine and the United States economy. There's, of course, also, a lot of people don't know this, but when you watch just about any science fiction film right now, part of it at least is filmed in Iceland.
yeah,
And so, the movie industry is also really big in Iceland, and that affects the culture as we get to see it on the screen.
that's true. People, often when I travel with our trade representative, Einar, who's based in New York, often when we travel, he shows people this amazing reel of different films made in Iceland, and people
Yeah.
are always like, "Really?"
Yeah.
Sometimes they know it's Iceland, but sometimes if it's like it's a film that's supposed to happen on a different planet or something,
Mhm.
it's
Right.
probably shot in Iceland.
Yeah. Yeah. Ruined that reel ruined science fiction films for me. Now I'm like, oh yeah,
Sorry,
I've walked on
sorry.
that beach where that robot is being attacked. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and we're also, of course, we're also really proud. We're proud of our culture. I got this question about literature before, but we're also really proud of our musicians. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. People usually say Laufey, but they're the sort of the biggest and newest musician out of Iceland is Laufey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just, I suggest that you look her up if you haven't
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. She's
Laufey.
amazing. We
Yeah.
got to see I'm gonna butcher the name,
Hello.
Cleo,
Yeah.
here in Portland, and they were amazing. My ears are still ringing from that. So let's talk about things that are a little bit more crunchy. What's the relationship right now between Iceland and the United States? How would you describe that?
It is good. It is, yeah. It's been it's been good for more than 80 years. We often when I talk about the relationship between Iceland and the US, I go way back to the summer of 1941.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know the story.
No, but well, I do, but you tell it.
All right. So Iceland was actually occupied by the Brits in the spring of 1940. It was a race if it would be the Germans or the Brits, and the Brits won, thankfully.
Hmm.
Um, so at the time, we were well, we were in part of the Kingdom of Denmark. We had a similar position as the Faroe Islands and Greenland have now. And well, a little different, but let's not go into too much details. But anyhow, and Denmark was occupied by the Germans. So the situation between Iceland and Denmark was different during World War II. And in the summer of 41, the Brits actually needed all the troops on the mainland in Europe. So, of course, Iceland couldn't be left unprotected. So, at the behest of the Icelandic government, the US sent troops to Iceland. And this was in the first one arrived, I think, in July 1941. So, it was almost half a year before Pearl Harbor. So, we were kind of the sort of the prequel
Yeah.
to the US entering World War II. And sometimes we sometimes say that they sort of never left until 2006, because 10 years later we made the bilateral defense agreement with the US, which is still in place.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the main pillar of our defenses, along with the NATO membership. We were a founding member of we are a founding member of NATO since 1949. But this has sort of, and we have done a lot of trade with the US. It actually took off in World War II because the shipping routes to Europe, they were mainly cut off. It was really dangerous. So Iceland has started looking to the West and started importing a lot of US products, which today are still very prevalent in Icelandic groceries. So if you go to an Icelandic grocery store, you probably see, much more of US made cereals. And, I sometimes say that you can't actually have a proper confirmation party in Iceland without a warm bread dish made out of a Campbell soup.
Ah, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, cream and mushroom. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
staple for
And a few
everything.
years back, um, we couldn't import Cocoa Puffs any longer from the US. It was a period where General Mills changed the ingredients a little bit.
Yeah,
So
the
they weren't
GM.
compliant. They
Yeah.
weren't compliant with the EU regulations.
Right.
So for a few years, no Cocoa Puffs in Iceland, and there were practically riots. But apparently the ingredients were changed back or something, so now they're compliant and you can get Cocoa Puffs again.
Who can forget the Cocoa Puff riots of Reykjavik? I mean, it was an awful time. I don't know how we survived.
I'm not kidding you. You can look it up, and there were loads of news about the Cocoa Puffs ban.
Oh man. All right. So diplomatic relationships are good on the political side. It sounds like because the Cocoa Puffs are flowing, the
Yeah, much better after that.
economic things
It
are.
was a difficult period.
Yeah, no, but you survived. You survived.
We
Yes,
did.
you got through it. What about like socially and culturally? How would you describe the relationship between Maine and Iceland on a sort of social and cultural level?
Between Maine and Iceland?
Yeah, I'm sorry, between the US and Iceland. Wow.
Well, okay, this was
So this is my whole
the
world
best
revolves
Freudian
around this.
slip I've heard for a long time. Because this is what you really wanted to ask about.
Yeah.
So the relations between Maine and Iceland are absolutely wonderful.
Yes. What about the rest of the United States, not just Maine?
No, it's also good. It's also good. Yeah, it's
Good.
yeah, and the cultural and social. It's um. I know you have visited Iceland. I don't
Many
know how
times.
many times,
Many
but
times.
for us, if you just think about things like tourism, if you go to Reykjavik, the odds of you meeting an American tourist are probably about as high as meeting an Icelander.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so we have had a little over 2 million tourists every year for the past years, apart from COVID, and about every third visitor comes from the US.
Mm.
So the interest is there, at least from the US side, and we have a lot of visitors from Iceland as well here. So and if you think about other ties, of course we have so many descendants of the Western Icelanders, the ones who settled here in the late 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s. I just love meeting the Western Icelanders. I went to North Dakota last year, to the Deuce, in Mountain,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was so great because I drove from I flew to Fargo and I drove from there to Mountain, and there was this welcome, reception when I came,
Oh, wow.
and I got greeted in this perfect,
Ah.
crystal clear Icelandic, and people that have never lived in Iceland. They are at least second generation Icelanders, and some third, even fourth, and they still have this kind of Icelandic. It's a kind of a. It's like it influences how they speak.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
It's this, sometimes this little yow that's like kind of
Mm.
slips into, between words, and they still use, Icelandic phrases
Wow.
uh,
Wow.
after all this time. And
Yeah.
it's a heartwarming thing to come there and see how they have, kept the old country close to their heart
Yeah.
all this time.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been,
I
you
It's on
should,
my list.
you should,
Definitely,
you
definitely on
should.
my list to go check that out. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds amazing, and I've heard many people talk about it. So
Yeah. First weekend of August in Mountain
okay.
and Gardar, um, the um, neighboring town.
Hmm.
I was thinking
Okay.
about saying city, but that would probably be too much. I know, I think I probably told you this before, but before I went there, I actually thought that it was at least a town of a few hundred people, at least, because that's how people had kind of talked about the Deuce.
Yeah.
And when I arrived, I realized it's probably a village with about 70 people, but they attract hundreds and sometimes thousands,
Wow.
for
Oh
the
my God.
Deuce. First weekend of August, go there.
Okay.
It's
I'm
great.
on. I'm
But
there. I'm
but
there.
don't get fooled by the name. I was just driving there, in my car from Fargo, and I was like, where's this mountain? Because it's pretty flat, but to be
Yeah.
fair, there is a hill there.
Oh, one hill. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a decent hill.
It's a decent hill.
Yes.
So, all right, let's switch gears a little bit here. Your friend and mine, Greg Bowerman, fellow Vandy grad, by the way, go Greg, and he brings up kind of an interesting subject here. He says, "How does the ambassador balance her personal views, political views, from the positions of the foreign ministry? What do you do to sort of keep those things kind of in check?"
Um, I think I'm pretty fortunate in the way that my personal views on foreign policy do not differ that much from the foreign ministry. But also, if you have been a journalist and brought up as the kind of journalist that I was, and you're just used to keeping your opinions to yourself, because it's pretty hard to, ask someone to talk to you or discuss things with people if you have been really, let's say, um, open about maybe uh, your views or how they differ from the person you're about to talk to, about to interview. You can't really do that and expect people to look at you as a professional
Mhm.
journalist.
Right, right.
It's like, I wasn't a blogger, I was a journalist. So I'm a public servant,
Yeah.
and so I try to serve the public and keep my opinions to myself as much as I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. As we all must sometimes. It's a little harder to do though when you're looking at Twitter and you're seeing things and you're like, I have to respond, but no, no, I'm not going to respond.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really active on social media. I have to sometimes to remind myself that social media exists.
Mm.
So
Well,
yeah.
it's a blessing to have to remind yourself that social media exists for people like me, the work that we do, we're heavily reliant on all kinds of media, social media, in other words. So it's difficult to ignore.
Yeah, social media is a useful thing, and it's something that, we use, of course. It's sort of part of public diplomacy, but you try to stay away from the rabbit holes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Instagram is fine. It's usually, just people living their good life and having their best day,
Yeah,
something like that.
taking pictures of their breakfasts. Um,
Yeah. Avocado
so
toast.
Exactly, exactly.
I actually, I almost posted a picture of a supposed avocado toast I had not long ago at an airport, which was the
Why
least
not?
ambitious avocado toast I've seen in my life. But I refrained from it because, I'm not gonna diss an avocado toast at the American airport.
So I want to kind of we're nearing the end of our time here, but I want to get into something a little bit that I've been really kind of curious about to hear your views on. There are so many people that love, there's so many Icelanders living here in the United States, and there's so many people like myself who are not an Icelander, but big fans of the country and of the people and of the culture.
Yeah.
What can people like me and other Icelanders living in the United States do to further the mission to further your mission, to further the mission of the embassy, the mission of the foreign ministry? What can we do to keep things moving? How can we help you?
Well, I think you're actually doing a lot. If I'm just speaking about you
Me
yourself, Ben,
specifically.
and Greg and all the other under consuls on the line. Um, but I think what you have been doing, for instance, and a lot of Western Icelanders or Icelanders by choice here in the US, um, sort of, friends of Iceland, is being bridges between the two countries. It's
Hmm.
like you just um, you talk about Iceland and you interest people in Iceland and everything Icelandic, I think. And sometimes I think it's even better when it comes from someone who is not so obviously working for Icelandic interests. But I think you just, you do it through everyday human connections. So talk about Iceland. If you remember this social media post about your Icelandic experiences and maybe even sometimes there are questions that pop up and I'm always impressed when someone takes the time to reply to them and give out some information and also it's I think it's just about keep doing what you have been doing because you're doing something right. Otherwise I don't think that we would have, as I said previously, every third visitor in Iceland coming from the US. So I just say thank you for your service.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Let's end this with one more question from Jay Lozos. Do you have suggestions for American citizens who are interested in working in or moving to Iceland, other than bringing Cocoa Puffs?
Well, what do you mean? Can you repeat the question? Is advice for someone
Yeah,
wanting to move there,
American,
about
American,
moving
yeah,
there or what to
Americans,
bring?
yeah. Bring a down jacket and Cocoa Puffs. I guess
Yeah.
it's yeah, American citizens who are looking to do work in Iceland.
Um, it's I think the sort of the if you think about the process of moving to Iceland, of getting a work permit, it's not that difficult. The Icelandic system is, I think, pretty streamlined, mostly digital, and quite clear. And if you're interested, you can always contact us at the embassy or the US embassy in Iceland. They are also very helpful. Um, but if you're thinking about moving to Iceland, I think um, prepare for having your circadian rhythm just, knocked
Yeah,
out of court because
yeah.
that's one thing that I think people find most difficult getting used
Mhm.
to. It's the, you know, endless days during summer, the sun. Well, in theory, it does set, but not really.
Mhm.
It just kind
Yeah.
of goes down to the horizon and then up again. But it's great as well. Just get like blinds for your curtain. Like what's it called? Like
Blackout
blackout
shade.
curtains. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
That's it. You get some of these and then you're fine. I'm actually turning out to be, an A person here. Okay, maybe not A, but like B plus or something, because having circadian rhythm in I don't know, or not having a circadian rhythm as
Yeah,
an Icelander, I've usually been a night owl. So
yeah,
what I
yeah,
usually do is I like to go to bed really late, and it's especially during winter. It doesn't matter when you wake up; it's always dark. Um, and but here, I'm suddenly experiencing, wanting to go to bed at 9:15 in the evening and getting up at 6 o'clock or something.
yeah.
It's for me, it's a weird experience. And also, you have to sort of expect weather to be really unpredictable. I've been, like most Icelanders, I'm always apologizing for the Icelandic weather because it's so, it's always changing, and you can be there in July and it can snow.
Yeah, yeah.
But after this winter here in Washington, I decided to stop apologizing. You can't get unpredictable weather. Obviously, I don't know if you can get it anywhere, but
Yeah.
after this winter, it's been pretty unpredictable. And the spring is of course, it's a little warmer than in Iceland, I admit, but it's been like really warm days and then like freezing the day after. So that's a little bit Icelandic. I'm getting the Icelandic experience here.
So we are, one quick thing I would add is acquire a taste for cod liver oil, because you're going to have to get that vitamin D somehow,
Yeah,
and in the wintertime.
take vitamin D, yes, and try just enjoy the seafood.
Right.
The food in Iceland is amazing. It's we have really good restaurants, but you can just go to the grocery store and buy pretty much anything that your heart desire, and enjoy cooking really fresh fish and do not cook it too much. I'm always trying to tell people here, fish is supposed to be medium rare at the most. You know, don't cook salmon through, don't
Nope.
cook cod through, just don't cook anything through, except maybe for pork or something. But, with fish,
Yeah,
you don't have to do that. Do that
absolutely.
with chicken and pork, not the rest.
Not the rest.
So that was the sort of the what would this say the recipe section
Yeah,
of
this is the culinary segment where we go into the kitchen and you
yeah,
teach us how to make pluckfisker.
yeah, yeah. Have
By
some
the
pork
way,
is good.
yeah, if you need a good place to get pluckfisker in Reykjavik, reach out to the embassy and Svanhildur will give you, or reach out to me and I will tell you where to go.
Yeah, you
Um,
know all about it. You've been so often to Iceland that you can you I think you would probably give better
hmm.
yes advice than I would.
Never, never. But every time I'm there, I do take good notes, and then when I'm there with people like you, I really take good notes and pay attention.
Yeah.
So,
And another thing, if you go to Iceland, you know, visit the swimming pools. They're
oh,
amazing.
they are, and not just the touristy ones too. The community ones are important.
Yeah, just go to, the probably we measure everything per capita. It's just so we can measure things, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would guess that we have more, public swimming pools per capita than
Oh,
most countries do.
yeah.
Also, probably more public golf courses. So you can play golf in Iceland.
All right.
And because the season is so short, it's good to have long days because you can play pretty much 24 hours a day during the summer.
Yeah. Well, Svanhildur, this has been so enjoyable for me, and it's so great to see you. You're coming up to Maine in the next few weeks, and
Yeah, I'm
we can't
looking
wait.
forward to it.
Yeah, we can't wait to welcome you back to our mud season.
Yeah, you know
Uh,
that my husband he's kind of worried because when I visited Maine the first time, he thought I wasn't coming back because I called and I was like, "This is great."
Well, you got to bring him here eventually. He's got to come up in the summer at least. So, thank you again for your time, and thank INLUS for organizing this event. This was really, really wonderful and a great evening. And with that, I will turn it back over to our hosts. Let's see, either Diane or Doug. Diane or Doug. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for just the most delightful conversation. This has just been wonderful. But before we go, I do have a couple of announcements regarding upcoming events. The INL US language classes will be starting up again in April. If you are interested in learning Icelandic or honing your skills, you can find information on the INL US website, inlus.org. Garrett Marks will be a guest of our next webinar on Tuesday, April 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Garrett is an avid hiker and trekker and will share his adventures in Iceland as well as tips and resources for you to plan your own trek or hike, even if it's just a few hours long. The Icelandic North American Lögberg Heimskringla newspaper has a writing contest underway until May 1st in the categories of short story, historical article, and young writers. More information about that can be found at lh-inc.ca. And looking out a little bit further, we will have a webinar with author Anne Marie Wells on Tuesday, June 9th at 8 o'clock Eastern. Her book, Happy Iceland, How Icelandic Strangers Taught a Miserable American the Secret to Lifelong Happiness, will be published at the end of June. So we will have her come on and talk about that. And that book sounds like it's something I have to read.
Yeah, me too.
Iceland, the INL US is also planning a photo contest. So as you're planning your trip to Iceland for this summer, make sure you take your camera with you. More information about that will be published in our summer newsletter, which will be coming out on June 1st. And since summer is just right around the corner, events will be kicking off soon. So please let INL US know of them so we can add them to our events calendar. And just one last thank you to Svanhildur and Ben for just a wonderful evening. And to today's audience, thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.